While the world watched Lewis Hamilton take his first win in red, almost nobody noticed what was happening back in Maranello. A new engine had already been signed off. Sealed, signed off, and loaded for the Red Bull Ring. The win in Barcelona came from the body of the car. The next one is built to come from its heart, and it arrives at the one circuit in Europe designed to punish anyone running short on power. The upgrade everyone has been waiting for is finally here. This story does not start in Barcelona. It starts with a number Ferrari has spent the whole season trying to hide. For 7 races, the picture has been the same. The car looks fast through the corners and ordinary down the straights. The drivers climb out, smile for the cameras, and then say the quiet part out loud. The chassis is there, the engine is not. It comes down to one thing. Take away the power gap, and Ferrari is fighting at the very front. The problem has never been the car through the corners. It is the one thing sitting behind the driver, quietly holding everything else back. And in 9 days, Ferrari finally does something about it. Look closely at what won the race in Spain, because it explains everything about why Austria matters so much. Ferrari turned up at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya carrying a new shape rather than more power. A reworked front wing, reshaped side pods, and underneath all of it, a completely redesigned floor, the single biggest source of grip on a modern Formula One car. They even bolted on a new set of wheels to control tyre heat through the long right-hand corners. It was a monster of an upgrade, the kind even rivals could not talk down, and it quietly reset what this Ferrari season could become. And it worked. Hamilton controlled the race on a 3-stop plan, caught a perfectly timed virtual safety car when Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin stopped out on track and crossed the line for his first Grand Prix win in Ferrari red. It was his 106th career win and his first in 686 days, going all the way back to Belgium in 2024. The records tumbled out behind it. At 41, he became the oldest driver to win a Grand Prix since Jack Brabham back in 1970. It was his 7th win at this track, which moves him clear of Michael Schumacher as the most successful driver in the track's history. And behind him, George Russell and Lando Norris completed the first all-British podium since 1968. It was also the first time in Formula One that 3 drivers of the same nationality had shared a podium since the San Marino Grand Prix of 1983. But the most telling moment of the whole afternoon had nothing to do with the win. It came 3 laps from the end when the championship leader Kimi Antonelli was running second and his Mercedes simply gave up. An engine failure. The engine let go on the one car that had looked untouchable all year. In a season being decided by these new power units, even the runaway leader is not safe from his own. Hold on to that thought, because it is the whole story in one moment. That result ended a Mercedes winning streak that had stretched across the first 6 races of the year. But here is the detail that sets up this whole video. Not one part of Ferrari's win came from the engine. Barcelona is a track that rewards aero grip and balance. It lets a clever floor cover for a power gap. The Red Bull Ring does the opposite. And that is exactly where Ferrari is taking its new one. To understand the engine that is coming, you have to understand the rule that allows it to exist. Because under the 2026 regulations, you cannot simply build a better power unit halfway through the year and bolt it in. These engines are frozen, locked in by the rules for the whole cycle. The only legal way back into the fight is a mechanism the FIA calls ADUO, the Additional Development and Upgrade Opportunities System. In plain terms, it is a catch-up ladder for whoever is behind. The way it works is blunt and simple. After the opening rounds of the season, the FIA measures every maker's engine against a set standard. Finish between 2 and 4% behind that standard and you are handed 1 upgrade for this year. Finish more than 4% behind and you are handed 2. When the first verdict landed during the Monaco weekend, the real shock was the standard itself. Not Mercedes, who had won every race up to that point, but Red Bull. The team that had not won a single Grand Prix was suddenly declared the engine to beat. Red Bull pushed back on it, and the numbers were quietly checked again. But the headline did not change. Measured against Red Bull, Ferrari came out somewhere between 4 and 6% behind. So did Honda, so did Audi. Mercedes, more than 2% back, were granted a single upgrade. Sit with how strange that is for a second. The team winning every race got 1 upgrade. The team that had not won anything set the standard everyone else is measured against. That is the odd thing at the heart of this system. It ignores results entirely. The grade comes from the bare engine on a dyno number, and by that measure Ferrari was given the most room to improve of any of the teams up front. There is a catch though, and Ferrari cannot get around it. An ADUO upgrade is not something you can spring on race morning. The updated engine has to be formally signed off, the paperwork filed with the FIA at least 2 weeks before the car turns a wheel with it. So when you hear that the new unit is sealed and loaded for Austria, that is not marketing drama, that is exactly where the rules have it right now. Ferrari has already frozen the design and filed the dossier. The decision is made, the version is locked, and it is sitting in an FIA office, waiting for the cars to arrive at Spielberg. Nothing about it is a rumor anymore. That ruling is the reason Ferrari has 2 engine upgrades in its pocket for 2026. And it is worth being clear about what this is not. It is not a balance of performance tool. Nobody is handing Ferrari extra fuel flow or taking weight off the car. It is a cost-saving system that lets a team that has fallen behind spend the money needed to climb back. The climbing still has to be earned on the dyno, and Ferrari has been earning it. So, how big is the gap they need to close? The number that has followed Ferrari since the first race of the year is around 30 horsepower. 30 down on Mercedes, 30 down on Red Bull powertrains. The pecking order is no secret up and down the paddock. Red Bull has the most powerful engine. Mercedes is second. And then there is Ferrari, behind both. On a circuit like Barcelona, the floor hides that gap. On a circuit like Monza, or the Red Bull Ring, it is the difference between leading a race and sitting in the mirrors as a target down every straight. 30 horsepower does not sound like much next to the numbers these engines make, but it is roughly a couple of tenths of a second every single lap, and over a race distance that is the difference between controlling the field and defending for your life. It is also the difference between making a move stick on the straight and pulling out, thinking better of it, and tucking back in behind. That is what Ferrari has been living with for 7 races. And the strange thing is, Ferrari did this to themselves on purpose. The power unit at the heart of the 2026 car, known inside the factory as the 0676, is an engine built to run hot. It runs fiercely hot on purpose. The thinking was that by accepting higher temperatures, Ferrari could package the engine tighter, free up room for the aero team, and build the kind of bodywork that just won them Barcelona. It was a gamble taken 18 months before a single race, betting that a smaller, hotter engine wrapped in a better car would beat a cooler, more powerful engine in a worse one. Mercedes made the opposite call, and so far, it has paid. They poured their effort into the engine itself, into raw power, and into keeping it cool enough to lean on hard, lap after lap. The result is the engine the whole grid is now measured against in spirit, and 6 wins from the first 6 races to go with it. 2 different approaches, taken years apart in 2 different factories. Ferrari bet on the body, Mercedes bet on the heart. For 7 races, Mercedes has been right. Austria is where Ferrari starts trying to prove the gap between those 2 bets is smaller than it looks. Half of that bet came in perfectly. They got a genuinely beautiful chassis, the one that just stood on the top step in Spain. The other half is the bill they have been paying every single weekend since. Peak power, and the cooling needed to chase it. The trade shows up in everything that surrounds the car. A chassis that flatters and an engine that cannot keep up with it. 2 drivers openly waiting on ADUO to claw the gap back, both of them clear that the horsepower simply is not there yet. That is the exact shape of the problem, admitted out loud. Now sit with what that means. Ferrari built a car fast enough to win a Grand Prix outright while carrying a 30 horsepower gap. The chassis has been doing far more than its share to cover for the engine since race 1. Picture what that same chassis does the moment the engine stops being the weak link. That is the bet Ferrari is making in Austria. So this is what is arriving at the Red Bull Ring, and it is bigger than a single new part. This is the 3rd power unit of Ferrari's season, and it is the first one built specifically to go after the gap rather than just survive it. The earlier units were holding the line. The current one is little more than a fill-in engine, something to get through the early races while the real work happened back at the factory. The new version does not throw the 0676 away. Ferrari is not allowed to, and would not want to. Instead, the work targets the exact weakness the hot engine idea created. The heat side, the cooling. The way the engine handles the heat it makes on purpose. The temperatures going in had been pushed dangerously high, toward 110 degrees, and the redesign is aimed straight at taming that. Alongside it come slightly bigger batteries to pull more out of the hybrid side, because in 2026, the electric power matters more than it ever has. Across the full plan, the gain is around 30 horsepower, and it comes in 2 steps. Step 1 is Austria. Step 2 lands at Monza in September, timed with the fourth and final engine change of the year, on home ground in front of the Tifosi. That timing is not an accident, and it is worth understanding why. Drivers do not get unlimited engines in a season. They are given only a set number of engines and burn through too many, and the penalties start dropping you down the grid no matter how fast you are. So Ferrari is doing more than choosing when their car gets quicker. They are spending a limited supply at the moments that buy the most. The third engine for the power tracks of mid-season. The fourth and final one saved for Monza, the Temple of Speed, where they get to show off the full package for the first time in front of their own crowd. It is part engineering and part chess. If you follow Ferrari and Hamilton this closely, do yourself a favor and hit subscribe, because the next 3 races are where this whole season gets decided, and every one of them gets broken down right here. There is a risk buried in that plan, and it is worth naming. A brand new engine version is an unknown. Antonelli just watched his Mercedes engine fail while leading, and that was a known, proven build. Ferrari is putting something brand new into the most heat-heavy race of the year. The reward is power. The risk is whether it lasts. Get it wrong, and the upgrade that was meant to rescue the season becomes a broken-down car on a Sunday afternoon. Maranello clearly believes the work back at the factory is solid. Austria is where that belief meets the real world. Austria on its own is not expected to erase the whole gap in a single weekend. The first step may pull the gap down toward 10 horsepower rather than close it completely, but that is the whole point of a ladder. You climb it one rung at a time. Spielberg is simply the first real rung. And as for the fuel, Ferrari's longtime partner Shell has been inside this engine plan from the very beginning, building the green fuel these 2026 engines run on. That fuel was locked in before the season even started, frozen along with the engines for years to come. Whatever gains are coming in Austria come through the engine itself, through the parts Ferrari has spent months fine-tuning, not through some separate switch waiting to be flipped. By the time the cars roll out in Spielberg on June 28th, the question stops being whether Ferrari has found more power. It becomes whether they brought it to the right place. Austria is round 8 of 24, the way into the key middle stretch of the season with barely a third of the year done. And of every track on the calendar, this is the one that turns horsepower into lap time most directly. The Red Bull Ring is one of the shortest laps of the whole year, a little over 4 kilometers of track, 71 laps of it on race day, around a track of just 10 corners. But those 10 corners are connected by 3 long straights, with drag reduction zones stretched across a huge slice of the lap. For more than 70% of every lap, the driver is flat on the throttle. There is almost nowhere to hide and almost nothing to do but go faster. And because the lap is so short, those straights come around again and again, more often than at almost any other race. Every weakness gets shown up more times per Grand Prix here than anywhere else on the schedule. Then there is the air. Spielberg sits high up in the Austrian mountains, one of the highest races on the calendar. Thinner air means less oxygen, which leans on the engine and the cooling system harder than almost anywhere else on the calendar. For a hot engine that has been fighting its own temperatures all year, this is close to the harshest place you can imagine. Which is exactly why fixing the heat weakness here, and not somewhere gentler, is such a bold statement. Ferrari is throwing the new engine straight into the deep end. Think about the contrast. In Barcelona, Ferrari won by hiding the engine behind a brilliant floor. In Austria, there is no floor on earth that hides a power gap down 3 long straights high in the mountains. If the new engine is everything Ferrari believes it is, this is where everyone sees it. And if it is not, this is where everyone sees that too. There is no better stage to prove the catch-up is real. And the timing could not matter more because of where this season stands. Kimi Antonelli leads the Drivers' Championship on 156 points. The teenager has been the story of the year, fast and ruthless in a Mercedes that won the first 6 races of the season. Hamilton, after Barcelona, sits second on 115, 41 points behind. Russell is third on 106. Leclerc, the other Ferrari, is fourth on 75, and that matters more than it looks, because when the new engine lands, it goes into both red cars, not just Hamilton's. That puts 2 upgraded cars in the fight, chasing the championship from 2 different points in the standings. In the constructors' fight, the gap is just as wide. Mercedes lead on 262 points. Ferrari are second on 190, 72 points back. McLaren are third. Red Bull, the very team whose engine just got named the standard of the whole grid, sit only fourth on points, a reminder that the most powerful engine and the best race car are not always the same thing. Now layer the engine onto that. Ferrari is behind in both championships, mostly because of a weakness they are about to start fixing. 41 points is a lot of ground. 72 is more. But there is a long way left to run. And the calendar after Austria is loaded with exactly the kind of tracks where power matters most. Austria, then Britain at Silverstone, then Belgium at Spa, one of the most power-hungry tracks in the whole world. 2 red cars, suddenly closer on power, arriving at 3 straight-line tracks in a row. That is the picture that turns a 72-point gap from a lost cause into a chase. Nobody serious is calling Hamilton or Ferrari favourites for this title. Antonelli and Mercedes have been too good for too long. But June is too early to settle a championship. It comes down to whoever has the fastest car over the back half of the year, and the back half is exactly where Ferrari has chosen to find its power. Close the engine gap, keep the chassis that won in Spain, and the team that looked finished in the spring becomes the team nobody wants to race in the autumn. If the upgrade lands, the timing does the rest. Ferrari gets faster at the exact moment the schedule turns in their favour, right when they finally have something extra under the engine cover. And think about what even 10 horsepower changes in race terms. It is the couple of car lengths you need to finish an overtake before the braking zone instead of bailing out of it. A tenth of a second in qualifying that moves you a full row up the grid. The defense you can hold on the straight instead of waving a faster car past. None of that sounds dramatic on its own, but it repeats lap after lap, race after race, and it adds up into points. A 30-point swing across a single summer is the difference between a live title fight and a side note, and it is built out of exactly those small, repeated moments. Here is what to watch for on June 28th, because the headlines will pull you in both directions. Do not just look at where Hamilton finishes. Look at the speed traps. Look at the top speeds down those 3 straights, and line them up against Mercedes and against Red Bull. That one matchup tells you more than any result. If Ferrari has truly found power, it shows up there first, in cold numbers, before it ever shows up on a podium. Watch qualifying, where engines run at their hardest and a gap shows up the most. Watch how the car behaves through the final sector, where the cooling has been working hardest all lap long. Watch whether the red cars can finally defend a position on a straight instead of giving it up. And watch whether it holds together, because a new version under this much heat is exactly where things break. And a single failure on a Sunday would undo the whole weekend. Remember that this is only step 1. The full picture does not arrive until Monza, where the second upgrade and the home crowd are both waiting. The catch-up was always an 8 to 10 month project, the kind of job nobody thought could simply be done next week. Ferrari did not argue the point. They went away and built it. And now, the next week is finally here. So this is where it stands. Ferrari has the chassis. After Barcelona, they have the belief. And in 9 days, for the first time all season, they bring the one thing they have been missing to the one track that will not let them fake it. The gap that has defined their year does not vanish on June 28th, but it starts shrinking. And if it shrinks the way Maranello believes it will, the team sitting 41 points back in the Drivers' Championship is about to become a very different problem for Kimi Antonelli and for Mercedes. The same kind of engines that just ended Antonelli's perfect afternoon in Barcelona are about to hand Ferrari the tool they have been begging for since race 1. This story is far from over. The part that counts is only starting now. If you want the full breakdown the moment the Red Bull ring goes green, the honest answer on whether the new engine delivered, subscribe and turn on notifications. That video lands the same night.